topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. We have got the greatest show for you for the next 50 minutes, and I have held back telling our expert, who is such a good friend to this show, something that happened right after his show the other day. I think it was Friday, that I wanted to shock him on air and not give him notice. Good morning, Barry.
Hey, good morning. I think I'm.
Oh, this is amazing. This is amazing. You know, in your business, Barry, I mean, there's a lot of companies that try or say they help with, tax relief. But you start digging into the weeds, and boy, they've had so many problems with their clients. And you have been around for a long time. I got a phone call after your show Friday. His name is Al, or Alvin. And he said, I just listened to your show with Barry, and I got to tell you, he got me out of the biggest jam. That he was the second person company I went to. And the first one, I couldn't even get them to return a phone call. But he said, Barry, help me from being buried. Anything he says on there, he said his words, gospel. Your word is gospel.
Well, we try. I mean, we do everything we can to help our clients through their tax problem. And, don't say my words are gospel, but, we try to hold to what we say and do what we say we can do. And we try to be realists. We got to put a realistic solution in place. And when we're talking to people, sometimes, we're telling them the solution's going to be X, Y, and Z, and then we can do better. And that's what I really like. And I like to hear the excitement from our clients when we are getting the solution that they need to their tax problem, or, even the excitement from people when they really realize that we stepped right into their shoes as soon as they signed our contract and as soon as they signed the power of attorney, and they no longer have to talk to the IRS, don't have to deal with the IRS. And they realize that when they do get a phone call, because maybe that revenue officer has been working with them, they can now just hang up the phone and be done with it. And then just call us and go, oh, here you go. Be thankful that I'm passing this off to you, and now you get to deal with it and have fun. Thank you. We enjoy doing that. And that sometimes is the best feeling that we can have, and the best feeling you can have if you have a tax problem is knowing that you just handed this all off to somebody that's going to deal with the problem and take care of it, and you don't have to worry about it except getting us information that we need.
Well, I couldn't wait to get this out and see your expression. But let me just introduce you. This is Barry Fowler. He's the president and founder of Taxation Solutions, Inc. He's an enrolled agent. And for those of you who don't know what an enrolled agent is, we are going to get into that. He's licensed to represent taxpayers before the Internal Revenue Service. He's got experience. I mean, we have been dealing with Barry for 10 years, and it's been well over 30 years since I know he's been in the business. But his expertise includes tax resolution, tax planning, and tax return preparation. And he's been instrumental in helping thousands of people resolve a lot of times, their complex tax issues with the IRS. And you know what, Barry, I had a friend 20 years ago tell me the IRS was after them. And he said it was harder than anything he's ever been in his whole life. In his whole life. And that you can take somebody like that and help them and change their whole life is pretty amazing, Barry.
You know, we try to amaze people all the time, and we try to be amazing for every one of our clients. Sometimes it's not, perfect and everything. We sometimes don't get the deal that, we think we can get. Sometimes we get better. And in dealing with the IRS, it's always a roll of the dice. What are you going to get? Who are you going to get? Who are you going to deal with? And how can you improve the situation, for our clients? Now, if you're dealing with yourself, I mean, the fun part about us working for you, I get to pick and choose who I deal with at the IRS. If I don't like who I'm dealing with, I hang up the phone. So if you're doing it yourself, if you don't like the answers you're getting from that revenue agent, hang up the phone, start again. I know it's a long process. I mean, when we hang up the phone and start again, sometimes it's another hour or two before we can get through. And I've got a priority line that I deal with. Now, when I dial the general number, hey, 2 or 3 hours, we may sit on hold waiting for somebody to get out there. So, your incentive to actually hang up the phone on somebody you don't like, or somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, or somebody that has their head strategically placed, makes it really difficult. I just gotta have to grin and bear this. Well, we don't do that. I know more than most of these people do that I'm dealing with. So therefore, me picking up the phone and then hanging it up on them, saying we got disconnected or whatever and starting again is not a problem. So sometimes you just got to start over and, talk with somebody else. So when you're doing it yourself, think about it. Is this the plan that I want? Is this guy being reasonable? And if not, start over and do it again. Go online, fill out the forms, the 433, A, and if you're in business, also the 433B. Figure out what the IRS is going to be looking for. If you think you might qualify for an offer in compromise, hey, I'm all for it. If you want to do it yourself, that's great. You can sometimes dig yourself a deeper hole. Sometimes you can get a solution. But you can go online to irs.gov and actually fill out the OIC, offer in compromise form that they have there that's going to do analysis for you that says, hey, you will or won't qualify. So, feel free to go on there. It doesn't commit you to anything. It's kind of their little tool to analyze whether you would qualify. Now, we know you may not qualify based on what the IRS tells you, but we have got ways of working through certain things that can benefit you to where you can qualify, whereas you wouldn't under the circumstances you're in currently. So we've got to take a look at that, and we look at every single situation to figure out the best ways to improve your chances of qualifying for offer in compromise.
Barry, I always think about this with you, is when a person tries to handle this themselves, there has got to be an intimidation factor involved. I mean, I'm talking with an IRS agent, but you don't get intimidated by that at all. And that makes a huge difference.
I'm only intimidated by my wife. And that's usually when I'm trying to do something myself, and getting intimidated. Yes, it is sometimes getting in over your head, because they're going to quote you the Internal Revenue Manual. They're going to quote you the IRS code, and I highly doubt anybody's read it except for me and maybe my staff. I highly doubt that you're going to be aware of everything that's in that manual that the IRS has to go through and stuff. But you do have a Bill of Rights, and you have a right to know. And there are publications out there you can go in and pull down and read. There are publications that revenue agent should be offering you to get. If they ever tell you you don't need representation, they're wrong. You need it. We always use the example of plumbing in your own house or electrician in your own house. Sometimes auto repair yourself on these new cars. Sometimes you cause a bigger problem, and it costs you a heck of a lot more to fix the problem once you got in there and worked on it. And that's sometimes the same thing that happens when you're dealing with the IRS, and then you finally decide, I'm over my head. I can't do this, and I need some help. And now you got to call somebody like me who's got to not only fix the problem you have, but then fix also the problem you created. So sometimes it's just a lot easier just to turn it over to somebody and just, hey, feel that relief and the stress of getting the tax monkey off your back and allow somebody else to deal with it, knowing that, hey, the only people you need to call are the people over here at taxationsolutions.net. And we're here to help you, guide you, tell you where we're at, how we're doing, where we're at in the process of getting the solution that you need and we say you qualify for in place. Some things take time. But why we have that time, as long as you're being responsive to us and we're being able to be responsive to the IRS, then we're able to keep things on hold, and we're able to keep the IRS out of your life and out of your bank account. And that's the nicest part, knowing that, hey, the IRS isn't going to come take everything. They're not going to take my house. They're not going to close my business. They're not going to, levy my bank accounts and all that fun stuff, or garnish my wages. Or, heck, if you're on Social Security, they can even garnish your Social Security. So it's time to put that solution and stop them in place.
Barry, I had a guy ask me yesterday, Facebook and YouTube promote the shows a couple of days out. And he asked me, he said, does that hurt me by hiring a company like Taxation Solutions? Does the IRS look down on that if I hire them? And, we never know how people think out there, but I thought that was a good question.
It doesn't hurt you at all. Matter of fact, it helps you.
Yes.
And I like to look at it in two different ways. Is one, if you're the taxpayer and you're dealing with the revenue officer or revenue agent, they're trying to take advantage of you sometimes and just collect as much as they can. Two, they know that they can probably pull the wool over your eyes and get you to put a payment plan in place, because they're going to threaten everything under the sun on you. They're not going to threaten to call the cops like some of the scams do, but they're going to threaten that they can levy your account, they can garnish your wages. They can tell you all the different things, bad things that they can do to you. You as a taxpayer are going to believe it. And then us, we know how to deal with it. So, we can work through the weeds with them and get everything. So it makes it a lot easier and going from there. Just pick up the phone and call us and get that free consultation. You don't have to use us. And you may choose to go to somebody else to do your tax relief or your solution, but give us a chance to talk to you and give you the facts. And you may not like our facts. We get a lot of people that call us and they don't like the fact that we're truthful and we're honest and tell you like it is. And somebody else is going to give you, the glorious end of everything dream out there. And, sometimes you've got to put some realization to it. And that's what we're going to do. It's a free consultation. It's a free phone call. It's that 877-996-6477. Again, 877-996-6477. Get the relief you deserve, relief you'll qualify for. And hey, if you don't like what we have to say, or it seems like it's too much, or you're not getting the pipe dream that somebody else is willing to sell you, by all means, we hold no grudges. We have no judgment zone. We just want to lay the facts out to you. And my staff and I, we're willing to do this as a free consultation regardless. And there's going to be some people that we won't take either. We turn a lot of people away because it's either something that we can tell them how to do it, and you can do it for free and easier, and don't have to use an expensive service or a service that won't benefit you enough to do it. Or, we can explain to you, hey, this is what you're going to end up having to do. And maybe you choose to do it yourself, or you're going somewhere else. Hey, by all means, after you get into the weeds of it and you can't handle it, call us back. Let us take it over. Let us take and manage it for you. If you called somebody else and they exaggerated, I won't use the term lied, but hey, whatever it is, they exaggerated because you don't listen to the terminology they use of maybe, possibly. And they slide those words in every conversation because they don't really know what they're doing. So you just got to watch out and be careful.
Barry and I have been doing this show for about 10 years, maybe even longer. And Barry, you've always got the greatest stories. And I want to stay on this point about somebody trying to handle this themselves. And I know one of the things you've always talked about is you can really bury yourself by giving them the wrong information. And that's one of the luxuries when they sign on with you. You don't have to worry about that. Can you share some stories with us of people who just, when they came to you, they really hurt themselves more than helped themselves?
Well, we'll use a story here just this week. We had an auto shop that called us, and they've been dealing with the IRS, and they chose to deal with it themselves. The IRS agent basically decided that they could make a $5,000 payment every month.
Wow.
Yeah. We got in and he called us, and we talked to him and went, why are you on a $5,000 payment every month is what this revenue officer was wanting. And you signed forms. Did you read them? No, they just told me I had to. Okay. Well, how did they come up with the five? I don't know. He cut me off right there and actually got mad at me because I asked him some questions because we wanted to know, what we could do. So, we talked to him and said, yeah, we could get this payment down. It's going to take quite a bit of work because you've already agreed to it. You've already signed the papers. You didn't read what you were signing. So let us get into this and handle it. He sent over financials, and I figured out what he did. See, the IRS asks you questions. They're kind of leading questions. And the IRS asks him, hey, what do you make? Instead of interpreting what the IRS was really saying is, what is your net income? He decided he needed to tell them how much money he brought in, grossed every month. And this guy was grossing close to $100,000 a month, which means about $1.2 million a year. Well, the IRS went in, did their little calculations, and came up and said, hey, it takes $5,000 a month to get this all paid off. Well, after he gets done paying for the parts to repair the cars. He pays his rent, pays his utilities, pays his employees, pays himself. His net income wasn't very high. His net income could barely afford to be $1,000, if that he could pay. And that we're at this point, we're kind of generalizing. We hadn't got into the nitty gritty to get down to, hey, what could he do to save money? What can he do to, pay a little bit more? Because you don't really want the debt out there. He's in business, it's payroll taxes, so he's going to have to pay it back. So we want him to pay it back as quick as possible. But we also want to get rid of some of the penalties and stuff that he's going to incur, so which we'll do as well. But he caused a bigger problem because now we've got to go back and fight this revenue officer to get them to realize that his net income is far less than what he's saying of being able to afford $5,000 a month and get him down to, the realistic number, maybe $1,000 a month. We'll be somewhere around there by the end of the time we're done. He's not going to be able to afford the first payment. If the revenue officer would have even noticed what he has in the bank, usually after the first of the month, he would realize the expenses were much higher. But the other question he answered is, how much is in your bank account? Well, he had $20,000 in his bank account. So the revenue also wanted him to make a $20,000 payment. Well, that $20,000 is there because he's got to pay the rent on the shop, which was close to $10,000 a month. He had to pay his utility bills and he had payroll coming up. Barely making ends meet month to month. But yet he dug himself a huge hole for us to go in and bail him out. And, so, hey, we'll get the tractor out, we'll get the backhoe out, and we'll get him bailed out of his problems. We're not going to do this one with a simple bucket. This one's got to be something bigger because of the issues that he caused. And, we don't want you to cause those kind of problems for yourself. Watch how you answer the questions. If you decide to deal with this yourself, take the time to think about the answers. Ask them for time. It never hurts you to ask for an extension of time to get that information. Hey, send me your list of items that you need and take the time to get it to them within that reasonable time period that the revenue officer, the revenue agent needs it by to set together the plan. So ask for the time and then take your time to put it together. Don't just shoot from the hip. Shooting from the hip just causes problems. Take the time to think before you answer and ask for the time to actually put the information together as well. Put financials together if you're in business. Those are the things that you need to do to make it make sense, for you and help you out, whether you're in business, whether you're self-employed, or, whether you're even a W-2 employee that has tax problems as well. Take the time and ask for the time to think and put things together.
Barry, I think people should think about that when they go up against the IRS, they're really a rookie. I mean, they actually are. And with a company like Taxation Solutions, I mean, you're the veterans. You handle this every day. And it's nothing against them at all, but these agents are very good at what they do.
Oh, absolutely. They have, a lot of them have years of experience. Others have months of training. And just because they have months of training doesn't make them good at what they do. It just makes them new and experienced, and the drive or desire to collect as much from you as possible, regardless of what the rules are for the IRS, because sometimes they don't know any better. Sometimes they're just learning what the rules are. But if they can collect, I mean, that's what their job is. That's what they get hired to do, is to get as much money in from taxpayers as possible. Whether it's people that owe money, whether it's an audit that you're going through, Their job is pure and simple to bring as much money in to the federal government as possible. The federal government doesn't operate on just whims. It takes money. Granted, sometimes it's fake money because it's a whole bunch of debt because they can't balance a dang budget. That's a whole other story. But they need to collect as much from you and I as possible just to afford the interest on the debt. And so that's what their job is, to collect as much money from you and I as possible to have continued money coming into the coffers. Now, the best thing they can do is, if they're going to collect from you and collect something reasonable that you can afford to pay, but get you back on the straight and narrow of being what they would consider a good taxpayer, paying your taxes every year, timely. It doesn't mean paying the maximum amount of tax you can possibly pay. It just means paying the least amount of tax required by law. And finding every tax deduction is legal and correct. There was a Supreme Court Justice, William Rehnquist, that said there is nothing against the law about using the tax code to your fullest advantage to minimize tax. Now, I paraphrased it, but hey, that is what one of the Supreme Court justices said. And, that stands as the policy. Use the Internal Revenue Manual 100% in the Revenue Code to find every deduction you can take and every tax credit that's available to you to minimize the taxes. Hey, I talk about this all the time. The rich people will talk about, hey, taxing actors, politicians, you name it. They all want to increase taxes, but they never want to increase taxes on themselves. That's why they have somebody doing tax planning. That's why they have a CPA, EA, or somebody working for them to help them minimize the taxes, because it's not against the law to do that. Matter of fact, that's what the law is there for, is to help you minimize it. That's what the Internal Revenue Manual is there for, and our guide to help you get a settlement or lower your tax debt or get your payment the lowest possible or put you in non-collectible status. That's what we get to use to fight them. Hey, speaking about what we get to use, Steve, I promised, and unfortunately, this is Thanksgiving week and getting things done just didn't happen. But, hey, if you email us at taxationsolutions.net, you can go info@taxationsolutions.net, email us. As soon as we have this IRS playbook available, we'll send you an email out, send you a link to it, and get it out. Hey, it's a free playbook. How are you going to beat the IRS? How does a good offense in football operate, or a good defense operate? With a playbook. They have the plays to, in defense, to stop the offense. When you're playing offense, like we do against the IRS, we have the playbook. And that's what we're put together for people, is the playbook on how you can beat the IRS. It's going to be great as soon as we get
I'm so excited about that.
Yeah.
Barry, something we never talk about is sometimes it starts off with an IRS audit. How do you assist people if they get that dreaded audit letter?
Well, first of all, we got to talk them down off the cliff, because you get that audit letter, and especially when it's not just simple, asking a correspondence audit for one item. It's generally somebody that's running a Schedule C, and it is something that's major. You got to support everything. Get us involved early. When you get that first letter, don't get us involved after you've already gone down the road and couldn't provide them anything. And they're already saying, hey, everything you've done is out the window. We can save you then too. but we prefer to get in front of it right away. Then we're going to work with you to look at what kind of bookkeeping and stuff that you had if you had a small business. If you're an individual W-2, most likely it's going to be a fairly easy audit, meaning that you don't have as much information that you're trying to support out there. But if they're auditing for things like charitable contributions, or maybe they're looking at the children that you've claimed for earned income tax credit, or the child tax credits and stuff like that. Sometimes that's a little bit more difficult because you got to prove the kids and jump through a lot of hoops to do that, especially maybe if you're fighting with an ex-spouse on this as well. But if you're going through an audit and you got a business out there, you need somebody that's going to go in there and fight, because they're going to be looking at things such as mileage. They're going to be looking at all the deductions, and maybe, God forbid, but I hope you didn't do this, but you exaggerated your deductions. We've got to find ways to defend a lot of what you do, especially when you may have exaggerated by a little bit here or there, or maybe you categorize things wrong, and we've got to fix those things. I mean, that's what we're here to do, to help you through it. But if you don't provide them information, they're going to not only hit you with disallowing all those deductions, but they're also going to hit you with all kinds of penalties, including fraud. And if it's major enough, then they get the criminal unit involved. And now you got to deal on the criminal side because you've committed, major fraud out there. Not to scare you, but you got to watch what you're doing. One of the things is, hey, if you went and, use round numbers, 5,000 for this, 20,000 for cost of goods sold, 15,000. You notice everything was 000 at the end. That's a huge red flag for the IRS, and we've seen it. With
That
people
makes sense.
wanting to do it, and they just don't want to go through the hassle of doing bookkeeping, which they really should be doing. They want to just make up the numbers and cut it down as far as possible. Or maybe you're working with a tax preparer and they said, well, if you had, 50,000 more in expenses, your taxes would only be this. And they say, oh yeah, just put that in, and they do it. Doesn't make it right. There's better ways of doing it. Let's make sure you have the right bookkeeping, the right numbers behind there, so you don't have, the issue. But when you're going through that, you're going to be sweating it. You've got to tick and tie. You've got to show them the support. You've got to go through and give them the information. Now, we went through an audit, and it's kind of a funny story. I don't think I've told this one before, but we were actually going through an audit with a young lady who was doing consulting, but also worked a W-2 job. And she was full-time employed, but she made a heck of a lot of money doing consulting. And this young lady, I know, exaggerated everything on the consulting. And, it started with the auto deduction, and then it went downhill from there. She claimed she put close to 100,000 miles on her car.
Wow.
For this consulting job while working a W-2 job, and then paid all her people that did work for her cash, because she bounced some checks to them. And so they all demanded cash. So she would write checks to cash, go cash them, but she put their name on the checks, and she didn't issue 1099s or anything. So we went through this audit. We lost everything across the board, and I knew it. I mean, she was terrible for this. But the first thing the auditor told me went, we ran the numbers on the automotive side, and, putting close to 100,000 miles on your car while working a 40-hour job, if you just use the speed limit in there and how long it would take her to drive 100,000 miles, it's not reasonable. Okay, wow. I can go with that. She doesn't have enough time in a week to make that drive.
Right.
And then, she started going down through all these things. We decided, hey, we couldn't do anything, with this auditor or anything else across the
So
board.
she wasn't honest with you either.
No, she wasn't honest with us or anything. So, we knew we were fighting a terrible battle, but we ended up, talking with her, and she's like, I want to stand on principle.
Oh, gosh.
Well, principle costs a lot of money, sometimes, and it's not always worth it. No, I want to do that. Okay. So which principle do you want to stand on? Well, I want to fight it all the way to tax court. Okay, well, I don't advise it, but if you want to do it, we can help you. We can't go into tax court. We're not attorneys or anything. So, we can help you through mediation and other stuff, but you'd be on your own there unless you want to hire an attorney. No, I'm gonna go into court and fight this. All right. We actually did the paperwork and helped her with the paperwork to get her into tax court. We actually ended up in mediation. And the funny part about mediation is I pretty much won every point with the mediator. We got most of her mileage. I think we got about 65% of her mileage. So we got about 65,000 miles. We got all the 1099 deductions because we started talking with this mediator and reasoned with the mediator that it was reasonable that she had to pay her contractors cash because she was bouncing checks, because we could see where she had NSFs. So we could prove that. Mediator gave us that. Mediator then gave us improvements for her home office, which was well over $40,000 for a home office. So we won almost every point with this mediator in tax court. And we never, ever had to enter into tax court. Talk about an excited client. Hey, we were excited. She goes, see, it's worth standing on principle. No, it doesn't always happen like that.
Right.
It so happens that, hey, we were able to do some reasonable explanations and show the reasonableness of some of the things that we were going on. And if we did not win on mileage, and we did not win on some of this home office improvements, and we did not win on some of these other things, you still would have had plenty of money, because we pretty much knew we could probably win on the contractor side. And we were able to do those kind of things and get those things done. And sometimes that's the beauty of having the representation. And we also knew how to handle this, because we got shut down so rapidly by that auditor that I knew the documentation wasn't there of the reasons that she used to deny, like the mileage deductions and stuff like that. So we had the benefit of knowing how this auditor was going to do that, and we could request information. And before we even got into tax court, we used the Freedom of Information Act to gather all the documents from that auditor. So I knew what they did and didn't do. So it helped me build my case to beat them with going into tax court and working with the mediators in tax court. So it's
what a great story, Barry. That was a great story.
Thank you. But, hey, these are the things that we get to do with the vast toolbox that we carry around with us to, help our clients in every way we can go.
Barry, we started off the show. I introduced you as an enrolled agent. Tell people what an enrolled agent is.
Smartest people in the whole wide world. Hey, you weren't expecting that answer, were you?
No.
Enrolled agents, we are licensed by the U.S. Department of Treasury to represent taxpayers to the highest level of the IRS. Now, to become an enrolled agent, you got to be tested. And we went through an extensive, basically 3-day testing. We get tested on all parts of the tax code, ethics, and, we've got to know the ins and outs of taxes and representation and the whole works. And then we go through an extensive FBI background check, which was amazing to me, because when I did it, I wasn't sure oh my God, what's going to happen with an FBI background check? What are you looking for? I haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah, you had nothing to worry about.
And then, but it's going down and getting fingerprinted and knowing now you're in the FBI database and all
Yes.
those fun things. You're like, why? And then we got to do continuing education, and they require about 30 hours, maybe it's 24 hours a year. And I do, between 30 and 40 to 50 hours of continuing education every year. I try to stay abreast of all new tax code. I try to stay ahead of what's going to happen in taxes, like looking at what Trump's going to do. When he comes into office, we were studying what was going to happen with the existing Trump tax code that would expire at the end of 2025. Now with Trump coming back in office and the Republicans controlling both the House and the Senate, we see there's going to be really good things, and maybe we'll make this tax code permanent with some great improvements to it too.
Barry, there's an area that we rarely get into, but it's really important in your business. You work with a lot of truck drivers, and there's a lot of truck drivers out there.
Absolutely. Years ago, when we started Taxation Solutions and working with our clients, a vast majority of them are self-employed. And the vast majority of them were owner-operators, truck drivers out there that had gotten themselves in deep with the IRS. And most of them, because they're on the road and they're not at home, and their spouse is left, if they're married, left dealing with everything at the house, taxes, bookkeeping, all that, just take a back seat. It's an afterthought. Why do I have to do it? And you get out there. It's just like most small business people. When you first start your business, you don't have the money, and you don't feel like the money is worth spending to get somebody to help you structure your business the right way, to do your bookkeeping, do your taxes, do your tax planning. All that stuff becomes secondary. You've got the cost of startup. You got the cost of advertising. You got the cost of maintaining your house. You got the cost of, cost of goods sold, rent, utilities, whatever it may be. And the last thing you're thinking about is, hey, what do I got to do for taxes? And then, it becomes one of those things, being that it's furthest thing from your mind. And as truckers, we saw a lot of, hey, I don't necessarily have to do this, or I don't want to do this right now, I'll do it later. And now you're 3 years down the road, and just now, 3 years later, the IRS is getting around sending you a nasty gram saying you hadn't filed your taxes. Well, you go back and you start filing them, and you realize that now I owe, 10 or 20,000. Or, after you file that return, it becomes 30 or 40,000. And then you file the other ones. It's just a big snowball effect. And a lot of them were truck drivers. And so we've put solutions in place for truckers. Matter of fact, after many years of doing solutions and getting tax relief for truck drivers, they started asking us, can you do bookkeeping and taxes for us? So we started a company called truckertaxtools.com. And it works with truckers nationwide to do bookkeeping and taxes at a reasonable rate. And it gives them free tax planning, a tax minimizer, profit maximizer. We look at everything for things that nobody ever discusses with truckers. Retirement. You ask a trucker, what's your retirement? I'm going to be in this truck until I die. No, we're trying to put plans in place to help them so that they have a future outside of that truck when they get to retirement age. No reason to be driving a truck at 80 years old. Let's get you out. Let's start planning for your future, especially if you're a young truck driver. Definitely got to do that. And so we do things like that for people, at truckertaxtools.com. And again, we give free consultations over there to all of our truck drivers. Now, you like my stories. So my
I
funny
love
story
your story.
was, hey, we had a trucker going through an audit again, used round numbers. Just didn't work. He came to us for audit help, and we're dealing with him. We got realistic numbers, and matter of fact, his realistic numbers were better than the round numbers that he gave us that were on the tax return. So we actually got him when we filed an amended return. We actually did better for him. But I was dealing with a revenue officer who was dealing with this audit on him, and she was fixing to take vacation, and she was excited because not only was she excited about being on vacation, but because she gets to be on the road and she could find truckers that had tax problems and she could call in, repo their truck. Oh my God. No, we need to stop this. And so we do a lot for truckers to stop and get them as much tax relief as possible and help them put solutions to their tax problem in place, with Taxation Solutions, and then keep them out of trouble with truckertaxtools.com. So, we enjoy what we do. We get out to the truck shows. I'm a speaker at truck shows on taxes and tax relief. I also get to go speak to new people that are looking from getting out from being a W-2 truck driver to being an owner operator, being their own person that's out there running their own business. And I go speak at a thing called Truck to Success. It's a seminar put on by Owner Operators Independent Drivers Association. And they offer to pay me to come out every year to do it, but I actually do it for truckers and for their foundation, complimentary, so that we can continue these guys going down the right path and putting the right solutions and doing the right tax planning for them to get them off started right in their truck as an owner operator.
Barry, you have your own show also on Monday mornings. Tell people about that.
I do. It's called Tax Talk for You. You can go subscribe at taxtalk4you.com. Hey, we're talking everything taxes. This week we just got done talking about beneficial owner information that everybody needs to file. So if you've got an LLC or a corporation, you need to go to fincin.gov and get your filings in for beneficial ownership information. If you have some complicated tax things for beneficial owners and who controls, you need to talk to your attorney, not us. So reach out to your attorney and talk to them about it. And then, we talk about tax relief. We talked about Trump's taxes and what he's planning to do over the next 3 to 4 years. So get over there, subscribe, and join us Mondays at 10 a.m. Eastern time at Tax Talk for You, or right on W4CYRadio.com, and you can join us over there listening to the radio program while you're on the road. Hopefully I don't bore anybody to where they fall asleep while they're driving. I'm not the most exciting person, and taxes are not the most exciting thing. But we try to enjoy what we do and get as much information out as possible.
Barry, I want to wish you and your family a very happy, a blessed Thanksgiving. We are so glad we have you. Barry's with us 3 times a month now, and we just thank you. Your show is just amazing, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving, Barry.
Well, thank you, Steve. I enjoy being here and being on with you. And
it goes by so fast. It's amazing.
And, wish you a very God-blessed Thanksgiving.
Thank you, bud.
We all have a lot to be thankful for in this country. We have a lot to be thankful for our veterans and those that serve in the armed forces and those that in public service, our police and fire department. We all have a lot to be thankful for. We offer our prayers for all those that are serving this country to help you and I. But everybody that's listening, you go home, be thankful, spend the time with your family, give them a hug, and sit around the table and say a nice prayer for not just your family, but for the country and everything we have going on in this country, and be a lot to be thankful for. Thank you, Steve. I always appreciate it.
Love you, man.
And everything. I look forward to our
From the guy who walks the walk.
We try.
See you soon, Barry. Barry will be back again with us
Thanks,
next
Stephen.
month. That's it for us today. Hey, listen, everybody have a wonderful and blessed Thanksgiving. Thank you, Rebel. Great work as always. And we'll see you all next week.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.